Hello, knowledge seekers. In this episode of 20-Minute Books, we delve into The Spy and the Traitor by Ben Macintyre, a gripping account of Oleg Gordievsky, a man who lived a double life as a Soviet agent and a double agent for MI6 during the tense years of the Cold War. This book not only traces Gordievsky's career within the KGB, but also his impactful work with the British Secret Service, culminating in a nail-biting escape to the West that reads like a thriller. Author Ben Macintyre, a historian and a columnist for The Times, brings his expertise and narrative flair to this true story, making complex espionage tactics and political intrigue accessible and engaging. With an extensive portfolio of critically acclaimed books, including SAS, Rogue Heroes, and Agent Zigzag, Macintyre has established himself as a leading writer in the genre of historical espionage. The Spy and the Traitor is a must-read for anyone fascinated by the art of spying, the intricacies of Cold War politics, or the personal courage and moral dilemmas faced by those in the Secret Service. Whether you're a staunch history buff, a political science enthusiast, or simply a lover of thrilling spy stories, this book promises to offer fresh perspectives and deep insights into one of the most volatile periods in recent history, all through the life of one extraordinary individual. Join us as we uncover the story of loyalty, betrayal, and the fine line between friend and foe in the shadowy world of international espionage. The Spy and the Traitor, the greatest espionage story of the Cold War. Introduction. Discover the thrill of espionage, the heart-stopping tale of Oleg Gordievsky. Imagine a world hovering on the brink of nuclear annihilation, where every shadow conceals a potential enemy, and every piece of intelligence could be the key to survival. This was the reality of the Cold War, a period of history marked by intense rivalry and mutual distrust between the USSR and the Western powers. At the heart of this geopolitical chess game were the spies, individuals who lived lives shrouded in secrecy and danger, walking a tightrope between allegiance and betrayal. Among these shadow warriors, one name stands out: Oleg Gordievsky. A high-ranking KGB officer, Gordievsky achieved the unimaginable. He turned his back on his country and became a double agent for the West. His story is not just a tale of espionage. It is a narrative that helped alter the course of history and played a pivotal role in the resolution of the Cold War. As we delve into Gordievsky's life, we uncover the layers of complexity that define the spy game. One of the most intriguing aspects of his espionage career was how he managed to evade detection by the watchful eyes of the KGB. For instance, to mislead sniffer dogs at international borders, Gordievsky employed ingenious tactics that seemed straight out of a spy thriller. These stratagems underscore the high stakes and constant danger that defined his existence as a double agent. Moreover, Gordievsky's defection and subsequent cooperation with Western intelligence had far-reaching implications. His insights into the Soviet system provided invaluable information that enabled figures like Margaret Thatcher to engage more effectively with Soviet leaders. This improved communication, facilitated by Gordievsky's intelligence, was instrumental in thawing the icy relations between the East and the West. Yet the world of espionage is not limited to the dramatic duel between the KGB and its Western counterparts. The Danish intelligence service, often overshadowed by its more famous British and American peers, played a crucial role in the Gordievsky saga. Their operations and contributions highlight the global nature of Cold War espionage and the interconnectedness of intelligence communities across borders. As we journey through the twists and turns of Oleg Gordievsky's life, we are not just witnessing the personal tale of one man. We are exploring a fascinating chapter of history that showcases the profound impact of espionage on global politics. The story of Gordievsky is a testament to the power of individual conviction and the intricate dance of diplomacy and intelligence that defines our world. Join us in unraveling this captivating narrative and discover the exhilarating world of Cold War espionage. Part 1. A Path Less Traveled. Oleg Gordievsky's journey from Soviet legacy to defying communism. In the shadow of the Soviet Union's formidable reputation, an institution loomed large, embodying the fears and tensions of an era: the KGB. Known officially as the Committee for State Security, the KGB's legacy of ruthlessness and efficiency echoes through history, a stark reminder of its pervasive influence. Within this landscape of power and paranoia, Oleg Gordievsky was born, his destiny seemingly preordained by his lineage. Anton Lavrentievich Gordievsky, Oleg's father, was a stalwart member of the KGB, having played a role during the harrowing Great Purge of 1936 to 1938, a period marked by mass executions and the suppression of perceived dissent against Stalin's regime. Despite the darkness of these actions, Anton wore his affiliation with pride, even donning his KGB uniform during weekends as a badge of honor. Born on October 10, 1938, Oleg Gordievsky seemed set on a path towards joining the ranks of the KGB, much like his brother Vasily. It was a common trajectory for the offspring of KGB members, an almost inevitable continuation of their family's legacy. However, beneath the surface of this predestined career, seeds of doubt and disillusionment with the communist ideology were taking root in Gordievsky's heart. These undercurrents of dissent were nurtured by Gordievsky's mother, a woman whose quiet nonconformity to Soviet ideology left a significant imprint on him. Additionally, his grandmother's clandestine adherence to her religious faith, a dangerous stance in a regime where such beliefs were outlawed, provided Gordievsky with another perspective, hidden yet potent. By the time Gordievsky entered the prestigious halls of the Moscow State Institute of International Relations, a breeding ground for the country's future diplomats, politicians, and spies, a shift in the Soviet landscape was underway. Following Stalin's death in 1953, his successor, Nikita Khrushchev, initiated a series of reforms that slightly loosened the grip of oppression, allowing foreign visitors and previously prohibited literature to penetrate the Iron Curtain. It was within this changing environment that Gordievsky's curiosity about the West began to flourish. In the Institute's library, he devoured foreign newspapers and periodicals, while clandestinely tuning into the BBC World Service and Voice of America by night, despite the prohibition against such activities. During this formative period, Gordievsky also found kinship with Stanislaw Kaplan, a fellow student and skeptic of communism. Their friendship, solidified through shared doubts and clandestine jogs, hinted at a future diverging sharply from the path laid out by Gordievsky's family and the expectations of the Soviet state. Thus began Oleg Gordievsky's transformation, a journey that would lead him from the inner circles of the KGB to an irrevocable breach with the ideology and institution that once defined his very existence. Part 2. Breaking Chains. Gordievsky's Awakening Beyond the Iron Curtain. In the mid-20th century, the Iron Curtain was not just a metaphorical barrier, but a palpable division that epitomized the colossal ideological chasm between the communist bloc and the West. The citizens of the Soviet Union, numbering around 280 million at the time, were ensconced within what effectively amounted to a vast prison, under the vigilant watch of over 1 million KGB agents. The pervasive atmosphere was one of suspicion, indoctrination, and isolation from the perceived malign influences of Western capitalism. It was against this backdrop of intellectual confinement and omnipresent surveillance that Oleg Gordievsky's disillusionment with communism began to deepen. Gordievsky's pivotal moment came in 1961 when, fresh from his academic pursuits, he first stepped beyond the Soviet Union's borders. His posting to East Berlin, ostensibly a prelude to his official induction into the KGB, coincided with a critical juncture in Cold War history: the erection of the Berlin Wall. Overnight, this formidable barrier materialized, a stark and concrete declaration of division that resonated deeply with the young Gordievsky. Witnessing East German workers toiling to reinforce this physical manifestation of ideological separation, Gordievsky was confronted with the grim reality of the so-called socialist paradise. The wall, in his eyes, was not a protective bulwark, but a prison fence intended to detain those within the Soviet sphere. Despite the resonance of this experience, Gordievsky's long-standing conditioning, in deference to authority, compelled him to return to Moscow and assume his duties with the KGB in July 1962. However, the seeds of dissent had already been sown. Seeking a modicum of distance from the oppressive atmosphere of the Soviet Union, Gordievsky envisioned an assignment abroad. Positioning himself as a married man, by swiftly wedding Yelena Akopian, who shared his skepticism towards the regime, enhanced his eligibility for overseas postings. It was in January 1966 that Gordievsky, alongside his wife, established a new life in Denmark under the guise of his official role at the Soviet embassy in Copenhagen. Ostensibly tasked with overseeing the network of covert KGB operatives, Gordievsky found himself in an environment that offered unprecedented access to Western literature and cultural expressions previously forbidden to him. Immersing himself in these once inaccessible treasures, he developed a particular affinity for classical music, emblematic of the wider Western cultural canon he was beginning to embrace. Day by day, the ideological gulf between Gordievsky and his Soviet roots widened as he absorbed the values and freedoms epitomized by the West. The transformation was gradual but inexorable, a journey of intellectual and moral awakening that set Gordievsky on a collision course with the very foundations of his upbringing and career. As the allure of the West became increasingly irresistible, it was only a matter of time before Gordievsky's simmering discontent would erupt into definitive action. Part 3. A missed connection. Gordievsky's clandestine plea goes unnoticed. Oleg Gordievsky's tenure in Denmark marked a profound ideological transformation. A quiet rebellion brewing within, driven by an intensifying repulsion toward Soviet policies. After 2 years submerged in the freedoms and cultural richness of the West, Gordievsky reached a pivotal moment of resolve. His disillusionment had morphed into a resolute determination to sever ties with the oppressive regime he once served. The turning point unfolded against the backdrop of international turmoil following the Soviet crackdown on the Prague Spring, an audacious attempt by Czechoslovakia to chart a course toward liberalization and democracy. The Soviet response, a brutal military intervention, ignited global indignation. In Denmark, protesters gathered in front of the Soviet embassy, voicing their outcry against the violent suppression. It was within this climate of tension and disillusionment that Gordievsky sought to telegraph his willingness to defect. In a calculated gesture of defiance, he phoned his wife from the embassy, openly condemning the Soviet actions in Czechoslovakia. This wasn't merely a spontaneous outburst of frustration. It was a deliberate signal aimed at the Danish intelligence service, known as the Politiets Efterretningstjeneste, or PET, who he knew were eavesdropping on embassy communications. Tragically, his coded plea went unrecognized, the subtlety of the gesture lost on the PET. Meanwhile, Gordievsky had unknowingly attracted the attention of the Danish intelligence, who had branded him with the code name Uncle Gormson, a nod to the notorious Danish king Harald Bluetooth Gormson. They monitored his explorations of Western freedom with interest, misinterpreting a casual curiosity for homosexual pornography as a potential lever for blackmail. In what was perceived by the Piet as a classic honey trap scenario, Gordievsky was approached by a young Danish man at a diplomatic gathering, an overture he declined, confounding the Danish agents who had prematurely surmised his sexual orientation. Unbeknownst to Gordievsky, he was under the radar of more than just the Danish authorities. The KGB, with its vast and meticulous surveillance apparatus, sensed an anomaly in their operative's behavior, evidenced by the disproportionate level of tailing he was subjected to by the pet. Unable to discern the precise nature of the threat, but erring on the side of caution, the KGB recalled Gordievsky to Moscow, preempting any further entanglement with foreign intelligence. This series of misunderstandings and misinterpretations underscored the complexities and dangers of espionage, as Gordievsky and the pet failed to connect despite shared interests. Ultimately, it would be the British intelligence service that successfully brought Gordievsky into the fold, capitalizing on the opportunity that the Danish had unwittingly let slip through their grasp. This near miss in Denmark was but a prologue to the next chapter in Gordievsky's extraordinary journey from KGB officer to invaluable defector. Part 4. From the Shadows into the Spotlight, Gordievsky's Journey to Becoming Sunbeam. Embarking on the path of a double agent is not a decision made on a whim. It's a complex, often perilous journey that demands a confluence of circumstances, motives, and courage. For Oleg Gordievsky, this transformation was set into motion upon his return to Moscow in 1970, carrying with him a sense of disillusionment and a secret hope for contact from a foreign intelligence agency. Unbeknownst to him, that hope would soon materialize, changing the course of his life and Cold War history. Britain's MI6 had already earmarked Gordievsky as a valuable asset, all thanks to an insightful debrief from his university friend turned defector, Stanislaw Kaplan. Kaplan's accounts of Gordievsky's early skepticism towards Soviet ideology had piqued MI6's interest, resulting in Gordievsky being vigilantly marked as a person of interest under the codename Sunbeam. Gordievsky's career trajectory took a favorable turn, propelling him back to Denmark, where the British intelligence saw an opportune window to initiate contact. The intriguing choice of Kaplan to re-enter Gordievsky's life, now as an emissary of MI6, underscored the complexity and psychological nuances of espionage. Their reunion over lunch, filled with tales of defection and subtle probing of loyalties, served as the prelude to Gordievsky's eventual recruitment. It was MI6 Station Chief Richard Bromhead who took the calculated risk of engaging Gordievsky directly. The venue was an innocuous badminton court, an everyday location that belied the high-stakes nature of their interaction. Bromhead's methodical approach, with a significant 8-month pause between contacts, reflects the cautious dance of trust-building endemic to intelligence work. Their crucial meeting at the bar of the new SAS hotel marked a turning point. Gordievsky was now more open, candidly discussing sensitive information with Bromhead and confirming his readiness to assist MI6 by disclosing his role in gathering political intelligence and reassuring Bromhead of the secrecy of their previous meeting. Gordievsky laid the groundwork for his life as a double agent. This pivotal encounter wasn't just a meeting, it was a declaration of allegiance, a step out of the shadows for Gordievsky and into the light as Sunbeam, a beacon for British intelligence. Gordievsky's readiness to share, to risk everything for the values he had come to embrace, encapsulated the essence of his defection. It was a moment charged with potential, both for Gordievsky and the intricate web of Cold War espionage. As Sunbeam, Gordievsky was not just ready to shine. He was ready to illuminate the dark corners of the Soviet intelligence machine for the benefit of the West. Part 5. Double Lives and Forbidden Love. Gordievsky's complex world of espionage and affection. As Oleg Gordievsky delved deeper into his role as an MI6 double agent, his life assumed a complexity that was cinematic in its intrigue. The duality of his existence was not restricted to his professional life within the labyrinth of intelligence and counterintelligence, but extended into the realm of his personal affairs, painting a portrait of a man navigating the perilous waters of love and loyalty. In the clandestine corners of Copenhagen, far removed from the prying eyes at the Soviet embassy, Gordievsky found himself engaged in regular secret rendezvous with his MI6 case officer. These meetings, set against the backdrop of his official duties, tasked with undermining Western institutions as per his KGB mandate, proved invaluable to the British. Gordievsky was not merely a source, he was a treasure trove of insights, laying bare the Soviet espionage playbook for his handlers. His contributions to MI6 were monumental, offering a window into the KGB's strategies for global espionage and covert operations aimed at the West. It was in this high-stakes environment that Gordievsky performed a silent, dangerous ballet, smuggling out microfilms filled with sensitive information, making him an unparalleled asset within the ranks of international intelligence. But just as he was orchestrating one of the Cold War's most significant acts of espionage, Gordievsky's personal life was entwined in its own intricate dance. Despite his deep respect for Western freedoms and values, his marriage was strained under the weight of traditional expectations and ideological tensions. Yelena's refusal to conform to conventional roles led to discord, while Gordievsky's adherence to communist tenets made the prospect of divorce not just a personal failure but a professional hazard. Into this taut atmosphere of conflicting duties and desires stepped Leila Aliyeva, a vibrant presence introduced by none other than the Soviet ambassador's wife. Aliyeva, young and ambitious, herself the offspring of a KGB major general, was a kindred spirit. Their connection was immediate and profound, yet laden with complexities. As their relationship deepened, Gordievsky was caught in the torment of concealment, his double life as an MI6 asset, a specter that loomed over the newfound love. Gordievsky's romance with Leila was a bittersweet symphony, a testament to the human heart's capacity for love amid the coldest echelons of global espionage. But this tale of clandestine meetings and whispered secrets was more than a mere love story. It was a narrative thread in the vast, shadowy fabric of the Cold War, illustrating the personal sacrifices and moral quandaries faced by those who choose to walk the tightrope of international intrigue. As Gordievsky's involvement with MI6 deepened, so too did the complexities of his personal life, underscoring the sacrifices demanded of those ensnared in the web of espionage. The secrets he harbored bore the weight of potential devastation, a burden that threatened to unravel the delicate tapestry of trust and intimacy he had woven with Leila Aliyeva. Yet despite the looming shadows, their relationship endured, a poignant symbol of love's resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Part 6. The Ingenious Escape Plan. Gordievsky envisions his path to freedom. As the curtains began to close on Oleg Gordievsky's chapter in Denmark, a palpable sense of danger enveloped his impending return to the Soviet Union. Recognizing the peril that awaited him in Moscow, where surveillance and suspicion would hinder any direct contact with MI6, British intelligence, with a flair for the dramatic and a deep concern for Gordievsky's safety, crafted an escape plan worthy of a spy novel. Codenamed Pimlico, the strategy was the brainchild of Veronica Price, whose expertise in emergency extractions was unparalleled. The essence of Pimlico was steeped in subtlety and symbolism, requiring Gordievsky to signal his readiness for extraction by the innocuous act of waiting by a bakery with a British Safeway bag. His attire, a grey cap and trousers, serving as further identifiers. In a reciprocal gesture of acknowledgement, an MI6 officer would casually stroll past Gordievsky, the unmistakable green hue of a Harrods bag in hand, the consumption of a Kit Kat or Mars bar sealing the silent communication between them. The climax of this espionage ballet would then unfold over the following days, culminating in a clandestine pickup near the Finnish border and a daring escape to freedom concealed within the bowels of a diplomatic vehicle. Yet, for all its daring and meticulous planning, Pimlico was shelved, rendered unnecessary by Gordievsky's own resourcefulness and strategic maneuvering. His marriage to Yelena, now dissolved, had indeed foreshadowed the professional setbacks he feared, relegating him to a role far removed from the heart of KGB operations. It was in these seemingly fallow periods that Gordievsky's resilience and adaptability shone brightest. Marrying Leila, His companion in both love and the shared burden of secrecy, Gordievsky simultaneously embraced the opportunity to enhance his English language skills through a KGB course, setting the stage for his next act. With the KGB's London embassy in his sights, Gordievsky adeptly navigated the bureaucracy of his organization, ensuring his appointment to the coveted position. In these critical months of waiting, he delved into KGB archives, arming himself with knowledge that would prove invaluable to his British handlers. On June 28, 1982, as Gordievsky, Leila, and their daughters took flight toward London, it was not just a physical journey, but a bold leap into a new chapter. Gone were the grey caps and covert signals of Pimlico. In their place stood a man who had masterminded his own destiny, deftly navigating from the shadows of espionage to the promise of freedom. Gordievsky's arrival in London was not merely an escape, but a triumph of intellect and will over the constraints of Cold War intrigue. Part 7. A mastermind behind the curtain, Gordievsky's crucial role in easing Cold War tensions. In the shadowy world of espionage, where secrets are currency and the stakes are nations' fates, Oleg Gordievsky emerged as a figure of unparalleled importance. Far from the cloak-and-dagger caricatures of popular culture, Gordievsky's contributions to MI6 were of a caliber that transcended the typical spy narrative. He did not merely pass along confidential documents or names. Gordievsky offered the West a looking glass into the psyche of the Soviet leadership, an insight invaluable and rare. One of his most crucial revelations pertained to a deeply ingrained fear that haunted the halls of the Kremlin, the fear that the West, led by the United States, would preemptively strike in a nuclear conflict. This anxiety was not idle paranoia, but a strategic concern that propelled the Soviet Union into launching Operation Ryan, an intelligence-gathering juggernaut aimed at preempting any perceived threats from the West. As the rhetoric from the U.S. took on a more confrontational tone, with President Reagan denouncing the USSR as the evil empire, the Soviets' fears seemed to be confirmed. Understanding the precise nature of this Soviet anxiety became a paramount concern for Western intelligence. The information Gordievsky provided was a linchpin in this endeavor, allowing the West, particularly the United States, to recalibrate its stance and rhetoric, dialing down the aggressiveness to avert pushing the Soviet Union into a defensive corner from which they might emerge swinging. Moreover, Gordievsky played a pivotal role in shaping diplomatic communications, ensuring that channels remained open and constructive. His guidance was instrumental in the West's dealings with the Soviet Union, particularly advising British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher on optimal approaches for engaging with Soviet leaders. His insights led Thatcher to adopt a more amicable public demeanor towards the Soviets, skillfully navigating their sensitivities to keep the diplomatic discourse productive. Gordievsky's influence extended into the intricate dance of internal Soviet politics as well. In 1983, amidst the Soviets' covert efforts to sway the outcome of the British elections in favor of the Labour Party, it was Gordievsky who armed Thatcher with the intelligence needed to secure her landmark victory. His advice on handling Soviet leaders not only safeguarded Thatcher's position, but also contributed to thawing the icy relations between the two superpowers. Simultaneously, Gordievsky's double-agent role was carefully managed to maintain his credibility within the KGB. MI6 furnished him with enough information to construct reports that showcased his diligence and acumen, reinforcing his reputation as a valuable asset to Moscow, while quietly steering the course of events in the West's favor. In summation, Oleg Gordievsky's legacy is not merely that of a spy who turned his back on his country. He was a master orchestrator who played a key role in pulling the world back from the brink of nuclear catastrophe, fostering understanding and dialogue where there was fear and suspicion. His contributions were pivotal in drawing the Cold War to a close, proving that in the high-stakes world of international espionage, knowledge and empathy might just be the mightiest weapons of all. Part 8. The Precarious Edge. Gordievsky's cover blown by betrayal. In the clandestine world of espionage, where the lines between friend and foe blur, Oleg Gordievsky found himself navigating a dangerous tightrope. As a prized asset of MI6, his expertise and insider knowledge were instrumental in advancing the interests of the West within the Soviet intelligence apparatus. This delicate balancing act involved MI6 actively maneuvering to bolster Gordievsky's standing within the KGB, even going as far as facilitating the removal of obstacles such as Arkady Guk, his superior at the Soviet embassy in Britain. The equilibrium of this covert dance was shattered in May 1985, when Gordievsky received an abrupt and ominous summons back to Moscow. The directive, coming on the heels of his elevation to the illustrious position of residence, was laden with suspicion. Gordievsky was faced with a dire choice: to defect to the West, securing his safety but relinquishing his role, or to return to Moscow, a decision fraught with peril. Opting for the latter, he stepped into the lion's den, hopeful yet apprehensive. Upon arrival, Gordievsky's fears were promptly realized as he was seized and subjected to interrogation under the influence of drugs. The KGB's intent was clear: to wring a confession from him, to break him. Yet, Gordievsky held fast, offering no such satisfaction to his captors. His resistance led to his release, but with a heavy price. He was demoted and kept under watchful eyes, effectively trapped within the Soviet Union, his movements and freedoms severely curtailed. The mystery of how Gordievsky's cover was compromised remained unresolved for years, until the intricate weave of espionage revealed its traitorous strands. The betrayal originated from within the CIA itself, embodied by Officer Aldrich Ames. Tasked with uncovering the identity of MI6's key informant, Ames, a man swayed not by ideals but by greed, turned his coat, selling secrets to the Soviet Union. His duplicity not only endangered Gordievsky, but also stained the legacy of the CIA with one of its most notorious lapses. Ames's betrayal yielded him millions, but cost Gordievsky nearly everything: his career, his freedom, and nearly his life. Within the confines of the USSR, Gordievsky's existence became a shadow of its former self, marked by the constant dread of retribution. His only solace lay in the hope of survival and the challenge of convincing Layla, his partner tethered to him by bonds of love and shared secrets, of his steadfast innocence. In this high-stakes game of espionage, Gordievsky's story stands as a somber testament to the unpredictable and perilous nature of life as a double agent, where a single act of betrayal can dismantle years of careful strategy and sacrifice, leaving behind a legacy etched in the annals of Cold War history. Part 9. A Daring Escape, Gordievsky's Leap to Freedom. In the nerve-wracking world of espionage, life and death decisions often hinge on the slimmest of margins. For Oleg Gordievsky, confronted with the abyss of potential capture or the slim hope of escape, the choice became inevitable. With the haunting specter of the KGB looming ever closer, the meticulously crafted escape plan known as Pimlico, long dormant, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. The question that haunted both MI6 and Gordievsky was whether this audacious plan could indeed ferry him safely out of the Soviet Union's clutches. In the weeks following his harrowing interrogation by the KGB, with MI6 in the dark about his fate, Gordievsky resolved to take the perilous leap into the unknown. The signal, a man conspicuously standing by a bakery, clad in a gray cap and clutching a Safeway bag, was activated on July 16, 1985, igniting a chain of events that bordered on the cinematic. MI6 agents within Moscow, playing their roles in this high-stakes drama, concocted a plausible medical emergency as a pretext to approach the Finnish border. Their objective was singular: to cloak their true mission of extricating Gordievsky from beneath the watchful eyes of the KGB. Gordievsky, meanwhile, faced the heart-rending realization that his family, his wife Layla, and their children could not accompany him on this perilous journey. A clandestine conversation on their balcony, a theoretical inquiry into escape, met with Layla's refusal, sealing Gordievsky's solitary fate. The rendezvous at the Finnish border was fraught with tension. Employing the very skills honed in the KGB, Gordievsky eluded his shadowers, melding into the orchestrated MI6 operation with the precision of a seasoned operative. The agents, bolstered by the innocuous facade of a family outing, engaged in an elaborate ruse to evade detection. A baby's diaper change strategically performed over Gordievsky hidden in the trunk, and the clever deployment of particularly pungent British potato chips to mislead the border dogs. The moment of crossing into Finland was marked not by words but by the resounding notes of Finlandia, a symphony of relief and triumph for Gordievsky, and a testament to the audacity and ingenuity of those who orchestrated his escape. It was an operation of unparalleled daring, underscored by the rich irony of a baby unwittingly playing a pivotal role in Cold War espionage. This incredible escape, replete with subterfuge, sacrifice, and a brush with the absurd, remains a remarkable footnote in the annals of intelligence history. Gordievsky's flight from the Soviet Union, leaving behind his family and life as he knew it, was a bold testament to the pursuit of freedom and the complex moral landscape navigated by those enmeshed in the shadowy world of spying. Part 10. A Life in the Shadows, Gordievsky's Journey from Defection to Recognition. After navigating the treacherous waters of Cold War espionage and making a daring escape from the clutches of the KGB, Oleg Gordievsky found sanctuary on British soil. Yet, even as he stepped into the relative safety of a London suburb, a profound sense of isolation clung to him, a stark reminder that the cost of freedom often comes paired with deep personal sacrifices. Far removed from his family, ensnared by the vindictive grip of the Soviet Union, Gordievsky was plunged into a state of depression, the full weight of his decisions bearing down upon him. The repercussions of Gordievsky's defection stretched far beyond the personal, impacting the lives of his wife, Layla, and their children, who became pawns in a cruel game of political retribution. The Soviet Union, eager to penalize Gordievsky for his perceived betrayal, restricted his family's movements, effectively holding them hostage within its borders. It was a ruthless act of revenge, one that severed the familial bonds and left deep emotional scars. Despite the relentless efforts of MI6 through Operation Hetman, and even the political muscle of Margaret Thatcher, who personally advocated for the family's release in meetings with Mikhail Gorbachev, the path to reunion was fraught with emotional turmoil. Layla's fury towards Gordievsky, stoked by abandonment and misled beliefs of his loyalty to the KGB, was a chasm too vast to bridge, even following their eventual reunion in London on September 6, 1991, spurred by Vadim Bakatin's reforms within the KGB. Though the family was physically together once more, the emotional distance remained insurmountable, culminating in divorce 2 years later. Despite the personal challenges and solitude, Gordievsky's life post-defection has been marked by accolades and recognition for his unparalleled contribution to the cessation of one of the most treacherously poised standoffs in history. His insights into the inner machinations of the KGB and the broader Soviet apparatus have illuminated the dark corridors of espionage for the world. His meetings with pivotal figures of the era, including Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, along with receiving honors from Queen Elizabeth II in 2007, underscore the significance of his defection and the indelible mark he left on global politics. Today, Gordievsky resides under MI6 protection in the calm of a London suburb, a world away from the harrowing life of espionage he once led. Through his writings and public appearances, he has shed light on the shadowy practices of Soviet espionage, contributing significantly to our understanding of the Cold War's complexities. And yet, to many of his neighbors, the true identity and extraordinary legacy of this quiet resident remain shrouded in mystery, a poignant reflection of a life defined by hidden truths and sacrifices for the greater good. Final summary. Oleg Gordievsky's story reads like a thriller pulled straight from the Cold War's most secretive archives. Raised in the ranks of the KGB, Gordievsky found himself disillusioned with the suppressive regime he was supposed to uphold. The ideals of communism, once pillars of his identity, crumbled as he confronted their stark contrasts with reality and the freedoms observed in the West. This profound realization set Gordievsky on a path of espionage that would not only redefine his life but also influence the course of world history. Serving as a double agent for MI6, Gordievsky embarked on a perilous mission, fueled by conviction and a deep desire for change. His contributions went far beyond the mere exchange of intelligence. Gordievsky offered the West a rare glimpse into the psyche of the Soviet leadership. At a time when the fear of nuclear confrontation loomed large, his insights allowed Western powers to navigate the treacherous waters of international relations with unprecedented awareness and tact. The intelligence he provided was instrumental in lowering tensions and fostering a strategic approach that ultimately contributed to the end of the Cold War. However, the personal cost of Gordievsky's defection was immense. His daring escape from the Soviet Union, facilitated by a meticulously planned operation by MI6, marked a point of no return. Leaving behind his family and the life he knew, Gordievsky sought refuge in the suburbs of London under the protection of MI6. Despite being celebrated and honored for his extraordinary contributions, including interactions with key political figures and recognition from the British monarchy, Gordievsky wrestled with the solitude and emotional toll of his choices. Oleg Gordievsky's transformation from a KGB officer to a celebrated MI6 operative underscores the complex interplay of ideology, personal conviction, and the high stakes of international espionage. His legacy, a testament to the power of individual actions to shape the course of history, continues to captivate and inspire, shining a light on the shadowy world of espionage that played a pivotal role in bringing one of history's most tense geopolitical standoffs to a close. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of learning and discovery as we explored the insights of another thought-provoking book in our growing library of knowledge. If you've enjoyed our time together, please take a moment to follow our podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and share 20-minute books with other knowledge seekers. Your support truly means a lot. Don't forget to join me again in the next episode, where we will delve into another enriching book. Until then, happy reading and happy listening.